Welcome to the ChangeMakers Podcast, produced by City Current and powered by Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services.
This show shares personal stories and insight from those who are leading by example, fueling positive change and making a difference so we can learn and do the same.
We cover life lessons, business advice, passion, and purpose.
Now here's your host, Jeremy Park.
Welcome to the ChangeMakers Podcast, produced by City Current and powered by Higginbotham. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. On this episode, we're talking higher ed, community engagement, and also matchmaking. You get to be introduced to the person that I've known for a long time, who's like a sister to me, who introduced me to my wife, Meredith. So we have a lot of fun to talk about, including our hometown. So here with us, we have Dr. Molly Harris, Vice President of Community Engagement at Grayson College, which is a fairly new role. So congratulations, Molly. How are you doing?
Thanks, Jeremy. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Well, I've been looking forward to this interview, this conversation for a long time, because as I alluded to, you're the one that connected me to Meredith that, made my family and everything possible. So thank you for that. We'll talk about that. But let's start out, talk about your childhood, because the fun of the ChangeMakers Podcast is we get to learn about your personal journey. So take us back to where you grew up.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I feel like I grew up in lots of different places. I was born in Arlington. At the age of 2, moved to Seattle. At the age of 4, moved back to Arlington, Fort Worth area. Stayed there until 2nd grade. And in 2nd grade, we moved out to California. I think it's probably relevant to note that my father was in the aerospace industry, so we moved quite a bit. So I spent 2nd grade through 5th grade in Southern California. And I think that really shaped much of my childhood and my formative years, right? So in 7th grade, we moved back to Fort Worth. And then about 6 months later, we moved out to Weatherford, which is really where I consider my hometown. So yeah, I kind of grew up everywhere, but Weatherford is home for sure.
Well, and you've got so many relationships. And I mean, I think we've known each other for like 40 years at this point, which is hard to believe.
Whoa.
I'm not that old.
No, I don't think we've known each other that long.
We knew each other when we were like 2. So talk about some of the, traditions for you and your family, because your family very close. And like I said, you're like a sister to me. So talk about your family.
Okay. I talk about my parents a lot. I lost both of my parents in the last 10 years. My mom was the heart of the family, and my dad was the mind. But don't think that mom didn't have a mind, because she was everything that you would expect from a strong, independent woman of the 80s. She was a small business owner, and she believed in civic engagement and philanthropy. And that just kind of created who I am today. My dad, of course, was an engineer. And so he's very left brain, very structured, very linear. And my mom is like this little bundle of energy, very creative. So I have the best of both of them. I have an older brother who you played tennis with in high school. And he married his high school sweetheart. They have 2 kids, my niece and nephew, my nephew graduates high school this year. So so that's all of them. As far as the growing up side, right? My husband and child came much later in life.
Well, and so the thing that always has stood out to me is, and yes, I mean, playing tennis with Darren was awesome. Such a good guy, always so supportive of others and the team. And, you coming out and being so supportive and just fully immersed, not only in school, but in the community, and your parents too, your mom showing up all the time and just, constantly putting out love and great energy. And just, it's kind of your point, like the center of not only your family, but of like the community as well. And I think just always giving, which is something that always stood out to me. What's something when you look at just advice that they gave you or something that they modeled, kind of like the community engagement? What's something that when you look back, you say, wow, I really, have been shaped by these experiences with my parents.
So it's ironic that you asked that question. Just last week, our local Chamber of Commerce had their graduation celebration for their leadership class, and they asked me to be the keynote. And so I thought, oh my God, what have I got to talk about? And I told my life lessons that I learned from my mom. And so I used a lot of mama-isms. And I think one of them that stands out is this finding the balance between Molly, what will the neighbors think? And whatever rolls your socks up and down. And so my parents always encouraged us to live an authentic life and to just really go out there and do things that made us happy. But I was always aware of being mindful of what would the neighbors think and making sure that my actions and my choices represented both myself and my family in a positive light.
That's great advice, especially for youth today with social media. I mean, you look at us growing up, we didn't have that versus, them constantly being watched or recorded or, it's just a very different perspective. But to your point, keeping in mind of what will others think. Do I want this, front page of Twitter and Instagram and all the X and all these things now? Carry that into maybe one or two special moments or memories because you were heavily involved Weatherford High School. So let's go there first before we get into college. But what's one or two memories that stand out to you?
Well, so this isn't a life lesson. This is just a funny story. You mentioned tennis and my mom always being really supportive of tennis, and I would always go out and watch you guys. So two funny little things that happened on the tennis court. My mom loved to support Darren, and she would often yell something about "Love you, Double Dare," or just little things that teenagers, are just mortified by. She always, instead of saying good luck, she always said, "Don't fall down" or "Don't break your neck," which is a little ironic because I recall one afternoon we were all standing at the bleachers. And there was an elevated, I think it was like into a hill. Yeah, you know where I'm going. There was a hill. And so there was probably, I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say like a 4-foot drop off the front of those bleachers. So it was a
very steep drop.
It was a concrete platform, right? And for whatever reason, there was no safety rail. And we were all sitting up there and we were chatting. And I just felt like people kept getting into my bubble. And so I just kept taking little steps backwards until I stepped back off that retaining wall and somehow garnered the nickname Tumbleweed. I was mortified.
It's funny how you forget, and all of a sudden, as soon as you start telling stories, I know exactly where she's going with this. But the thing, yes, it is a very steep drop, and it's concrete, and it's just boom, there it just drops. But two is for anyone who watches this now who references Tumbleweed, you're going to know exactly either you knew it from Weatherford or you now know that they watch the ChangeMakers podcast.
Oh my goodness, it makes me laugh and cry. Oh, it's so funny.
We had a really just amazing, not only, tennis team, but just friend group that, hung out all the time. And it was very different too, in the sense that you could go over to everybody's houses and hang out all day and night and just constant, just fun and love and energy. And it was awesome. And so carry that into then Weatherford College. And, because for you, once again, when you look at supporting Weatherford and higher education and starting to take that next chapter, was that always something that, when you were going in, because you were kind of looking at drama and communications and speech, but was higher education and being a leader in higher education always a goal for you?
No, I grew up with a goal to own a dance studio. I danced from the time I was 3, fairly successful at it. In community college, I spent 3 years at the 2-year college. I had a lot of fun. I took a lot of classes that I didn't need, but I will never regret that 3rd year at the community college. So I lived on campus in the residence halls, but I taught at a little dance studio that was in the strip center nearby. And so the good thing is I didn't have a car, and so I could just walk and teach my classes and then walk back to my room. And so one night I was walking back and I was thinking about my life, and I was just, kind of mulling over next steps. The dance studio owner had told me that she thought she was going to be done with the studio and just kind of hand off the studio to me. And I remember thinking that night, it was dark. It was probably 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. And I was thinking, I'm 21 years old. This can't be my life goal achieved. Like, there's more for me than owning a dance studio. So as I'm walking, I'm processing through what could that be? And I thought, well, I'll do a school of performing arts. I always loved the show Fame growing up. And I thought, how fun would that be? So then okay, well, what do I need education wise? What are the skills I need to achieve that? Well, I'm going to have a doctorate if that's what I want, because if I'm going to lead the leaders and the educators, I've got to have the top education. But then I thought, okay, well, it's not just dance all day. You got to have the educational part too. So, okay, I need to learn about that. And it just made me reflect on my life and my experience at Weatherford College. The president at that time was Dr. Jim Boyd, an absolutely amazing human. He was one of the key folks with Robert Greenleaf and the formation or the identification of servant leadership. And I thought, okay, what would Jim Boyd do? And I thought, oh, I want to be like Jim Boyd. So I want to be a college administrator. So Fame went to the side and higher education is what stood. Now, I always wanted to be at the community college. I've never desired to teach or to lead at the university level. I think our universities are great partners in what we do, but their focus and their mission is very different than what we do at the two-year college.
Let's talk about then the journey, your academic journey. So carry us through between Weatherford College and then ultimately Mississippi State, where you got your doctorate, and what made you decide to go to Mississippi State?
Yeah, so I did my 3 years at Weatherford. I ended up studying drama because I was on full scholarship. And I thought, if I'm going to get a doctorate, it doesn't really matter what my undergrad is, but if it's free, that sounds really great. And so after Weatherford, I didn't really want to leave the nest. I got really comfortable at Weatherford. My mentor, Mike Indy, came to me one day. It was July. Just you got to think about the timing. July after the third year. And he said, where are you going to school in the fall? Which was August. And I said, I don't know. And so about 2 weeks later, he came back, handed me the keys to his car and said, you have an appointment at A&M-Commerce on Tuesday at 10 a.m. and you're going. And so I ended up at Texas A&M University Commerce. It had just changed from East Texas State University. And so within 2 or 3 years. So I didn't really know of the college. I knew nothing about it, but his wife had done theater at Commerce. And I thought, okay, I'll go and I'll look at it and we'll see. I walked out that day with a full ride. And they were able to piece several scholarships together for me. So I finished my bachelor's in theater at A&M-Commerce with a minor in journalism with an emphasis in public relations, not knowing where that would lead me. At one point I thought, well, maybe I'll just write reviews and I'll be a theater critic because I really enjoy the theater. But of course, it has morphed into so much more. I stayed at A&M-Commerce for my master's and did higher ed administration. What nobody told me at the time was that if I wanted to teach at the community college, I needed 18 hours in a teachable field. It makes sense, but no one told me, so I didn't know. So I got a master's with no teaching field. And so I thought, okay, well, what am I going to teach? I knew I always wanted to teach part-time. Even as a college administrator, it's important to me that I connect to the students in the same way as a faculty member would. So I couldn't teach theater. That couldn't be my teachable field. You don't really do that part-time. But communication, I could do. So I ended up finishing the master's, went to the University of North Texas to start on those 18 hours of communication. I finished 15 and Mississippi State came a-calling. And the Mississippi State thing is interesting because I'd always been in Texas for school. Mississippi State University wasn't on my radar, except I knew they had cowbells, right? Like I remember the football games being on and thinking, oh my God, that noise. Now I say, oh my gosh, I love that noise. And so one of the VPs at A&M-Commerce was a mentor of mine, and Bud Smith said, I want to send you to Mississippi to do this community college leadership program. It was then known as the Mid-South Community College Fellowship Program, MCCFP, and it was at Lake Tiacata in Louisville. And I said, okay, I'll go. And he said, and if you enjoy it, you can earn 3 credit hours at Mississippi State towards their doctorate in community college leadership. And I was like, that's a thing? Okay. So I went to Mississippi for a week and I learned a ton. I will admit, I learned things about community colleges in our rural communities that I never really understood. My life growing up, we always had running water. We always had electricity. Now, certainly there were times when mom got a little busy and forgot to pay the bill, so we had a couple hours without. But we always had what we needed to survive and to live. So that week really opened my eyes to the need of our communities for our colleges. And so I said that, I was like, I'm coming back in 2 years and I'm going to do your doctoral program and I want to be your grad assistant and I want to plan this leadership program. And they said, that sounds great. What I didn't know is that it would be a couple of months until they called and said, we need you now. We won't have a fellowship when you want to come. We need you now. So I think mom and I drove out on a Thursday and classes were to start on Monday. I can't remember. I had called a guy about an apartment. Of course, you're talking a major university town, not a lot of housing, but somehow I snagged an apartment downtown on Main Street that I could afford. And it just kind of all fell into place. That Monday, I still wasn't registered. They had pulled me, I'd started work somehow, and they'd taken me to Jackson. And I didn't have the right shot records or something. So there I was in the Jackson County Health Office. That was an experience. And I got my shot. And again, like registration closed at 5:00 for this whole semester. Everything was on the line. I'm on the phone trying to register for classes. There was no like get on the internet and do it. But again, it's one of those things where everything just fell into place. My 3 years at Mississippi State are some of the most transformative, not only in what I learned through my doctoral program, but the people I met. And your wife is one of those people. And my husband, too. I met him at Mississippi State.
I was about to say, and your husband. So, yeah, I mean, your life changed, my life changed, everything through Mississippi State. Your experience at Mississippi State changed everything. Before we carry that conversation forward, I want to go back because I think viewers and listeners already can tell, like, you're passionate. You are someone who is outgoing. You're going to make friends, very easily. But I think something that has always stood out is your ability to get involved and to take initiative to seek out mentors and to always say, hey, I want to help. I want to get involved. When others would shy away, you would say, hey, I want to help. I want to get involved. And I think what also is a part of this storyline that I'm seeing is your ability to get involved, your desire to get involved on campus creates friendships and relationships that then go out of their way to open these doors, to take you under their wing and to really provide opportunities that wouldn't be there otherwise. Do you think that, is that something that kind of has played out? Because I mean, the advice that we give, like Cooper and Kaysen, especially Cooper now that he's, just graduated from Alabama, but we said, get involved on campus, get heavily involved and take the initiative to go and meet your professors and hang out with them and get involved and also get involved off campus because your world, you need to be connected because that's where in real life opportunities come from people, not just your good grades and your test scores. Like you need to have relationships with people who are going to care about you in your future. Mm-hmm. Is that a big part of your storyline, you think?
Absolutely. So I will say from an educator perspective, we know that students who get involved on their college campuses are more likely to succeed. Period. End of story, right? probably the most pivotal experience in my collegiate journey was my membership in Phi Theta Kappa, which you remember too. I joined Phi Theta Kappa at the community college. It's the honor society for two-year colleges, headquartered there in Jackson, Mississippi. I didn't know what that would mean for me. I thought I was just joining another college club, right? It transformed my life. As a community college student, I did their leadership development program. It's a humanities-based program that really kind of spoke to my soul because we watched a lot of films and read a lot of literature and then talked about the leadership lessons through that. I always, not always thought, but I guess as a youth, I thought that leaders are born. You can't learn to be a leader. Fully disagree. I think we can all learn to be leaders in different ways, right? I think there are some intrinsic things that we're born with that make us different types of leaders, right? But I think we can all lead and we can all learn to be leaders. So it was because of Phi Theta Kappa that I was able to get such a huge scholarship at A&M-Commerce. And then it was because of Phi Theta Kappa, I was able to get my master's paid for. And it was because of all of that that I got the grad assistantship at Mississippi State, which paid for my doctorate. And Bud Smith is a Phi Theta Kappan, and Mike Indy, my mentor at community college, had connections with Phi Theta Kappa. Much of my professional career has been related to Phi Theta Kappa. So now I get to give back to my own students and watch them grow and thrive. I think growing up in the era that we did, a lot of times we heard people say, it's not who you know. I mean, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And it was really kind of this negative connotation of using people and kind of stepping on them to get up, right? But I really think that it's much different than that. It's about creating authentic relationships. I like to see myself as a connector or a convener. When I meet people out in the community or across our campus, I'm like, oh, you need to know so and so, and how can I be the bridge builder to bring those two people together so that then they can go forth and prosper and do great things. I see that evidenced in my career, even in my personal life. Here's a funny story for you. My mom worked at the Chamber of Commerce in Weatherford. She produced the Parker County Peach Festival, among other things. It's a really big festival, shut down the whole town for, right? Her boss at the chamber was Raymond Curtis. And Raymond Curtis was a former superintendent at Weatherford ISD. So my probably first week at Weatherford College, I was walking across campus and I was headed to the student union, and I saw Mr. Curtis talking to Dr. Boyd. Now, I knew who Dr. Boyd was, the college president, but I didn't really know him. And so I walked up and said, greeted Mr. Curtis. And then I turned to Dr. Boyd, stuck out my hand, all 18 years old of me, and I said, "Hi, I'm Molly Clark, and you're going to need to know me." And it just started from there. And I think, oh, that's so gutsy. But I didn't know any different. I just saw my mom making connections and I emulated that, right? And so, yeah, I think the people that we meet, the people who come into our lives are there for a reason. And we can either treat them with kindness and really give and take in a relationship, or we can step on them to get to the next thing. And I'm not a step on them kind of girl.
Good stuff. Well, you talk about people coming into your life for a reason. So talk about meeting Mark, talk about meeting Meredith.
Well, I met Meredith first, so we'll start with her. So Meredith was a participant in the leadership program, the MCCFP. It has a new name. I don't know what it is now. But she was a participant in that leadership program at Lake Teocata. And I was organizing it, and she came in, and I was like, oh my God, she's got the best energy. I just knew she was going to be my friend. We later learned that we're sorority sisters, and so it makes all the sense in the world. And we stayed connected. It just so happens that this was the era of MySpace, Jeremy. And you were in my top 10 favorites, and she was in my top 10 favorites. And my little friend out in LA who was trying to change the world saw this little bombshell in my top friends and wanted to know more. And really, you two took it from there. I stayed out of it.
Yeah, no, it's funny because people say, "Well, how did you meet?" And it's like, well, you could say I met her online, MySpace, but I really met her through Molly. But so to your point, there was a conversation before. I remember her Southern accent, and then all of a sudden I see this picture. And the funny thing is you had been trying to get me to come out and visit for a long time. And I'm just like, where's Starkville? Like Mississippi State? Like, I don't even know. Kind of like you said, I just know a cowbell and that's about it. And then all of a sudden I see this picture. 2 weeks later, I'm on a plane to Memphis, and the rest is history. So,
well, I will say, I mean, I tried to stay out of y'all's early, getting to know each other, because if anything went wrong, both of you were very important to me and I wanted to maintain that relationship. But I think what you both benefited from is having someone vet the other, right? For me to tell her that I knew you forever, this is what your family's like, this is what you believe in. He's not selling you fake news, right? Like he is authentic. This is who he is. And for me to be able to tell you, no, that's not a filter. She's really that gorgeous. And she's the kindest, sweetest person in the whole world. And she's smart enough to keep up with you. In fact, I think you're going to have to work to keep up with her. I think having that ability really helped you to not grow together quicker, because that was all on course, but feel comfortable and trust that the other person is really who they are.
Yeah, I agree 1,000,000%. And she definitely is the smartest one. She, no question, she's the brains of the family. Share meeting Mark, because I think this is a cool piece too for you.
Yeah. So, okay. So Mark is born in Texas. He's a Tyler boy, but his family moved around a lot. They ended up in the Mississippi Delta. He went to Greenville St. Joe. When he graduated high school, for whatever reason, he ended up at Hines Community College. And at Hines, he had a great group of friends that he's still friends with today. Many of them went to Mississippi State together. So one of his friends is Dr. Jim Haffey, who's the president at Holmes Community College. Jim was in the doctoral program with me in my cohort. And so I was in Mississippi, mid-20s, don't know a soul. All I really did was go to work and go to class and go home. I wasn't really much of a bar girl, but I didn't have anyone to go to games with. I didn't tailgate, and for a social person, that was kind of tough. So at our classes went like all day Saturday. And whenever we were in class and Mississippi State played at home, on our lunch break, we would run out to the tailgate and tailgate with friends for the hour and then run back in and then try to finish class. And so on one of those days, there was this guy at the tailgate, and I thought, well, he's kind of cute, but he would not give me the time of day. No, wouldn't even look at me. And I thought, what the heck? Fast forward a year, we went out for a few drinks after class. We were in Tupelo, and we were at Harvey's, for all my friends who know these places. So we went out and we were having a couple of beers, and Jim was sitting on the end of the table. I don't remember who's with us, but Mark was sitting there too. And Mark kept getting up from the table and leaving. And I was like, what's the deal? Like, why is he so popular, on the phone all the time? He was like, oh, he's got this girl and she's got him on a pretty short chain. And I thought, well, that's disappointing. But it explained to me why he wouldn't give me the time of day. And I respected the heck out of it. I thought, that's a man you can trust right there. Too bad somebody else already snatched him up. Fast forward a little bit longer. Jim Haffey calls me one day while I'm at work, and he says, I want you to meet little fella. And I said, Jim, I don't think there's anything about a little fella that I'm interested in meeting. And he said, no, he's great. You're going to love him. He's a lot of fun and whatever. I've known him forever. So fast forward a couple of weeks. It was actually Jim and Meredith and Mark and I all met as a group outing. And I will never forget, I taught class that night, and my class asked why I was dressed up a little more than normal. And I said, I've got a date. And they, of course, gave me a hard time about it. We went to mug shots that night. And when I stepped out onto the balcony, they were all seated. And Mark stood up and he pulled out my chair and he goes, here, this one's for you. And I thought, oh, now I don't know if the man has held the chair held the chair for me since then. But that night in that moment, I knew like he was a neat guy, right? And I realized that he was the guy who had been at the tailgate at Harvey's that night. So the next night we talked on the phone and he wanted to take me out. And I said, I can't, I have a date. And he said, I'm sorry, what? And I said, I have a date with somebody else. And he said, okay. And I could tell he was really worried about it. I said, but hey, let's go out the next night. And he said, all right, I'll come get you, whatever. So after that date, he said, I don't really want you to date anybody else if I'm going to date you. And I said, okay, well, if I date you, I need you to know that I'm going to move back to Texas someday. And I need to know that you're okay with that. And he was like, yeah, when do you want to go? So on our second date, we got pretty serious. And that was 17 years ago, 18 years ago. Yeah.
It's amazing. Just, like the stories in the moment. And then all of a sudden when you look back and it's like, look at how much our lives have changed, obviously, for so much better in terms of all these blessings that happen. So talk about Grayson College, because I think, where you are in this moment, one, as I mentioned, congratulations on, the success, the new title, everything that comes with that. But it's a new opportunity to create something very special when you talk about community engagement and building a very bright future. So talk about Grayson College.
Grayson College is the greatest little nugget in North Texas. We've got about 4,250 credit students. We sit about 5 miles from the Oklahoma border, straight up north from Dallas. And so that can kind of situate us. We've got the 4,200 students. About 1,350 of our students are dual credit. So they're in our high schools. We do a lot of dual credit for 23 area high schools. That's a lot. And then we've got another 3,000 students who are in our continuing education, adult education, GED classes. And so it's a great campus. We've got residence halls and athletic programs, and we do more workforce education as a percent of our enrollment than any other community college in the state of Texas. So it's heavy on the workforce. So think welding, culinary arts, advanced manufacturing. We just added electrical engineering technology because the chips manufacturing is in our area. And then health sciences is huge for us, about 30% of our population.
Yeah, talk about your role.
So I'm in a very new position, just created March 18th of this year. Our division is community engagement. And so I have our South Campus, which is a branch campus. We have a small business development center on campus, so they report to me, and they do phenomenal work in our community. Our college foundation is under my leadership. We have a person who does grants, works side by side with the foundation, so they both report up. And then I have strategic communications and marketing and communications. And so a lot of outward facing offices and stuff at the college. My goal is for us to do more storytelling. We've got so many great things happening here, and we have amazing people, and we haven't taken the time to tell their story, which in turn tells our story as an institution.
When you look at that intersection, just like you said, you have a deep appreciation for the role and the power of community colleges. And when you look at what is provided versus the four-year institutions, the ability to really sit down with businesses and say, what do you need? The trades, the culinary, just like you're talking about, the dual enrollment. Like there is a lot of powerful opportunities that a community college and Grayson College provides to be able to truly lift talent development, workforce development, legacy wealth, like all of these things. How do you view Grayson College in terms of that very important role in the intersection in the community?
So our mission is student success. It's easy. It's not some big long paragraph. It's easy to know. It's easy to follow, right? So when I think about student success, I think about not just a student getting through a class and graduating, but I think about them getting back into the workforce and really kind of diving into their family and elevating their own prosperity, right? And so in my role, I look a lot at what do we do for the community, but also what does the community do for us? It's got to be reciprocal. And so I'm uniquely poised to make sure that we're hearing the community, but then also that the community hears us and that they know all these great things that are happening. Our college is 3 miles outside of town. Sherman and Denison are rivals, and they're two neighboring cities. They have the oldest football rivalry in the state of Texas at 126 years. The division is real. Highway 691 is the highway that goes between the two cities, and our campus sits on the Denison side of that highway. So we have a Denison address. We are very intentional about making sure that we represent our entire service area, but really making sure that Sherman knows that we are here to serve them as well. I believe that they feel that. We often serve as a convener between the two communities because the rivalry is real in the sense that, yes, it plays out on Friday nights, but they're competing for business and industry as well, because each community wants to see their community thrive. Well, we view it as Texoma, and we want Texoma to thrive. So I don't really care which city gets the HEB. It's a grocery store, but I kind of care, right? Because I live here too. But as long as we get one, that's all that matters. How can we make Texoma better? Texas Instruments is building a massive complex in Sherman. They've got a bunch of peripheral businesses coming in as well to help support that chips industry, the global wafers, Globitech, those kinds of things. TI came to us and said, we need to train people to do these jobs. And these are jobs that I know nothing about, right? Like I don't understand the work that they do, but I know that there's clean room jobs and then there's dirty room jobs. And I don't think they're really all that dirty. Okay. It's not diesel mechanic. So how can we partner with them to make sure that we can train more people and get them out into the workforce? We've done some really cool things, and I want to brag on the college real quick for it. So TI is putting, I think, 24 people into the program. So we first created the program, which has to go through a long process with accreditation and all of those things. TI put 24 people in there. In the next semester, we opened it up for non-TI employees. So we've got about 32 students in that electrical engineering program, but they need like 750 people. So we're partnering with colleges all the way to Weatherford and down into the Dallas area, NCTC, which is in Gainesville, which is about 40 minutes to our west, to try to get these students through the pipeline. So we've got some ISDs, some local schools who are doing a 1-year certificate program. It'll take those high schoolers 2 years to do it because they're doing their other high school things. But those kiddos will graduate high school with a 1-year certificate, and they're able to go straight into the workforce, making $65,000 or $70,000 a year. That's real, that's real money. They can come to us and do the second year of their degree and end up with which is the automation piece. And that just elevates their salary even more. And so working together with the community, finding out how we can each do different parts that all come together to build a human into an amazing employee. And then the businesses get to reap all those benefits too. They're great partners.
Yeah, and I think, what you're alluding to between the different cities, you see that play out between Dallas, Fort Worth, Memphis, the MSA. Is it Memphis versus Collierville, Germantown, DeSoto County? All of the cities, it's the co-opetition. They cooperate, but there's competition. And so, it's this balancing act to be able to ultimately lift the region, but then the different cities and the entities inside. And so carry that into one or two trends or things when you look at the education industry? Obviously, just like every profession and industry, a lot of change over the years. And it probably, coming out of the pandemic feels like it's the roller coaster ride, like, what I knew yesterday doesn't even apply anymore today. Constant change. But what are one or two things that are putting a smile on your face for, positive trends, things that you see going on within the education realm that are really good opportunities for the future?
So first, I'm stealing the phrase co-opetition, totally stealing that. I think there's two things, especially post-pandemic. I do see more cooperation, right? I see more of a willingness to roll up the jacket, sleeves, and to really kind of get down to the business and figure it out. I think all of that taught us that we have to work together. And so I think we've built, and I think maybe it's a trauma bond, but we've built stronger connections through all of that. And then I think the second thing is we've recognized that our students have real demands on them as humans. And so it's easy to get them on our campus and to treat them great and make sure that they have a lovely time and that they learn a lot, but then they have to go home. What are they dealing with? What are their struggles? So we've done a lot of work with our basic needs support right before actually in November of 2019, we launched our formal food pantry on campus. We'd had it for about 5 years, but it was supported by actually Phi Theta Kappa. It was supported by a college organization. The college took it over and we added staff and we built that program. We also added emergency student aid. We did a survey with the Trellis group and found that I think it was 74% of our students couldn't get their hands on $500 in an emergency. And so just imagine yourself as a student, if you get a flat tire and you can't afford to fix the flat, you can't get to class, you fail the class. Well, we've got donors from the foundation who've invested in you and believed in you, and they're not getting a return on their investment, right? So how can we just take care of that tire, keep you on track, and move on down the road? And so we were fortunate that we had already stood up our emergency student aid. And at that point, students were eligible for $500 an academic year. And they didn't have to use it all at once. They could submit a receipt for a tire or submit a receipt for new glasses, and we would just pay it as needed. We develop partnerships in the community, so we get really great pricing on those services, and that helps the student maximize their allocation. So I'm really proud of that work. Gas vouchers is the other one. Again, we're 3 miles off the interstate, so it's not like you can walk here, right? There's no city transportation. We're in rural North Texas. So students can get, I think they've changed it just within the last couple of weeks, but $20 3 times a semester, they can pick up a gas card. And that just helps to keep them on path. The wonderful thing is that a lot of times students will buy a $20 gift card and bring it in whenever they're able to return the favor. And so that sort of give and take and community building with our Grayson Cares program is something that I think has been really pivotal in our view of our work as an educational institution.
Yeah, and it also shows creative problem solving, right? I think innovation, sometimes people get caught around like it's got to be something big. And in many cases, it's micro innovations where it's like, let's do this little thing to take care of them over here that then allows them to make sure that they stay on the path to graduate. And so all of these to me are important innovations that then help people in the end. One more thing before we switch over to a lightning round, touch on for you as a mother. So as you mentioned, a big part of your ability to walk up and say, hey, you need to know me. I'm Holly Clark, was emulating your mother, right? And so for you now as a mother with Parker, share that balance of working, but also too being able to be the role model that allows her to follow her own dreams, but to be engaged in the community and build those relationships and do all these things that we're talking about.
Yeah. So just for context, Parker just finished her freshman year. She has done competitive cheerleading for 5 years, I believe, and she cheered in middle school, but chose not to in high school. She's great. Parker's like the greatest little thing ever. I think the biggest lesson I've learned with Parker is that she's not me. And she's very quiet. She's very intentional. She really does not like large groups. She doesn't like large sounds. She's just not me. But what I hope that she learns from me is the importance of civic engagement and giving back and being kind. In second and third grade, she was bullied relentlessly for befriending the kid in the class who was really struggling. She didn't know that he had a horrible home life. She just saw this nice kid and wanted to be his friend. We often wonder what happened to that kid because during COVID, we lost touch and then he never came back to school. Worry about that one. But even at a young age, Parker understood I'm going to be the one to be kind, even if nobody else is. Now, as a teenager, when she kind of cares what people think of her, but she really kind of doesn't, navigating that and understanding when to be the voice and when to just say, I'm sorry I let that happen to you, is kind of what she's learning right now. She's heavily into robotics. I think she's found her people. While she's a woman in STEM, I think she still is very adamant about being a historian. I keep encouraging the STEM path because she's an only kid and I need her to take care of me in my old age. She needs the resources to do that. But at the end of the day, I mean, whatever she loves is what she loves. And I want to nurture that. Of course, when she was doing competitive cheer, I was the cheer mom. I'm the one who's organizing the things and doing all the booster stuff. We weren't a formalized booster club, but I was behind the scenes making sure all the other parents were doing the things so that the kids could have the great experience. How that plays out in robotics, yet to be seen. She just really wants that to be her space without her parents. We've had some conversations about it. I was like, okay, but like this is who we are. And if that's what you want, then we want everything for that. And she's like, yeah, but I just kind of want it to be mine. And so Mark and I will find a way to be supportive and make sure that they have what they need without being visible, and without overshadowing her. That's really what it's about. But Mark and I have raised a kid that's intelligent and kind and humble. There have been times in her journey when she said, I think I want to be an advocate. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you want to advocate for? Right. And she was like, I don't know. I just want people to be kind to each other. And it's in those moments when I'm like, all right, she's okay. She doesn't have to be outgoing and she doesn't have to be the life of the party. She's got her head right and she'll do her thing, whatever it is.
Yeah, very, very cool. Well, let's switch over and do a lightning round as we wrap up. This is a conversation that could go on literally for days, not just hours. So we do have a time code in the end. So let's switch over and do a lightning round. Give me something you like to do to relax.
Watch trash TV.
So if you're watching trash TV, what's a favorite trash TV show?
Big Brother. And it's because I like to watch people interact. Yeah, I like to see how they think and how they act.
So it's like a little research project.
I'm just a nerd like that. I like to watch trash TV.
What is a recent book you've read?
Ooh, I just read, Parker makes fun of me. It's a Colleen Hoover. It's not like the most intellectual thing. And she says they're not good books, but they're good books for everything that I need, which means that they're easy to read and I don't have to think about it. I've got a slew of leadership things that I've read. I mean, yeah.
Hey, sometimes the escapes are the best ones. So that's, yeah.
And I only do it at Christmas and during the summer. I usually don't read otherwise.
Hey, well, Meredith, for part of the Christmas tradition, pulls out a puzzle and she just sits there and, becomes the puzzler. And it's like, that's her just mental escape. So, yeah. I get it. When you have visitors come to town, where do you like to take them?
Ooh, okay. So we just got this new place in downtown Denison, which is the longest main street in Texas, by the way. And it's called the Deviled Egg Company. And it's deviled eggs. And they're just like fancy deviled eggs. It's a small business. There's one in Ohio, and she just opened up here. And I think she's going to open one in McKinney. But it's just so unique, and they have the best little vibe.
So when you go back to Weatherford,
Mhm.
where do you like to go? I'm thinking pizza place is one of them, but where do you like to go in Weatherford?
Yeah, I mean, pizza place is certainly it. I'll admit it used to be Hutch's. I used to like to go to Hutch's. They changed ownership and it's not the same. And so I was a little sad. And then, of course, yesterday's, you got to have that chicken salad.
Where's a favorite vacation spot for you and your family?
Gulf Shores. Absolutely love it.
Where is a favorite restaurant in kind of the region for you? Like, where do you like to go?
We do a lot of mom and pop. Even when we travel, we like to go to things that are more homegrown. Mm. Okay, so maybe it's a franchise, but it's something that most of your viewers would understand. I'm a real big fan of Lost Pizza Company.
That's
Yeah,
good.
it's good. I'm trying to get them here in Denison.
Okay, a little bit of recruitment. That's good. We'll have to tag them on this.
Yeah.
Know some people there. So when you have a special date night with Mark, where do you like to go? What do you like to do? What's a special date night for Mark and you?
Okay, that would imply that we have date nights, and we're not great at that. Most of our dates are my work functions,
Fair
which
enough.
is really kind of sad. But I will say one of the things that we really like to do together is watch live sporting events. So once or twice a year, we make it to a Mississippi State football game. We really love when Mississippi State plays in Texas, so or even Oklahoma. So we're going to get that now with some of our new additions to the SEC. And yeah, I mean, we just got to make a day of it. We're not ones to like go to the game and leave. We like to go early and have a meal and then tailgate and then watch the game and then linger. It's just a whole experience.
So speaking of whole experiences, what is an experience you like to do together as a family with Parker?
Ooh, live theater. My Parker really enjoys live theater. Last year, I took her to Book of Mormon in Dallas, and she laughed entirely too much for a 13-year-old then. I kept looking at her like, how do you know what that means? What are you doing? She really enjoyed that show.
What is a quote or a saying that inspires you? And you don't have to get it verbatim, but what's a quote or a saying that inspires you?
Okay, so I actually have one right here on my desk. And this is actually just from yesterday's calendar. I'm a quote nerd. All right, so this is Rabbi Ruttenberg. Knowing when your voice is not needed in a conversation is an important form of discernment. And I like that one a lot.
When you look at opportunities to get involved, nonprofits, give us one nonprofit or organization you've worked with that is really special to you.
I currently sit as the board chair for the United Way of Grayson County. Absolutely love the mission of United Way and the work that they do for our community. I love the fact that they can gather resources from the entire county and then spread them out into different philanthropies around our area. One of the programs that they do that I really, really love is our backpack program. And so several of our schools get backpacks filled with food that the kids can take home for the weekend. And so I'm very proud of that. And then the other one that I'm proud of is our Dolly Parton Imagination Library, and making sure that kids birth to 5 have books in their home is vital for the success of all of us.
Yeah, that's an awesome program. Last 2 questions. One, so we have our, not to date us again, but we have our 30th, high school reunion coming up next year. We'll say it's far away.
Yeah.
But what is special about that when you look at our class of friends and where we've been able to go off and, really make a difference in all these places around the nation? What's special when you look at where we were versus where we are, looking forward for our 30th reunion?
I think one of the coolest things about social media is the ability to keep connected and to see what people are doing. I'm connected with a lot of our classmates on Facebook specifically, and it's really interesting to me to see people who I thought I was going to be really concerned about if they ever made it to adulthood, not only doing well, but thriving as adults. I mean, being the kind of people who make a positive impact on their community and are really pouring into their families and into their businesses. So I look forward to the opportunity for us to get together and to kind of reflect on the fact that somehow we made it and we're productive in society, and in some cases, even creating significant change in our society. So to see all of that come together and see how it plays out, I think will be really cool.
Well, last question. You are crafting your legacy every single day when you look at the difference you're making with your family, obviously Grayson College, all the students. I mean, when you look at everything that you're doing for others, a huge piece of that is the legacy of giving back and supporting others. Many, many, many years from now, because you're still creating it every single day, what do you hope people say about you and the difference you were able to make here on Earth?
That's big. I think what I want people to walk away with is to know that change happens in many different ways, and even the smallest change can have a big impact. You don't have to be the top dog of an organization to be a leader. Each one of us in our own space can make the world a better place. And I don't mean that to sound trite, but I really do believe that we all have the capability of making the world better for somebody else.
Well, last question is, where do we go to follow you and your efforts? So website, social media, email, where would you direct us to go?
Yeah. Okay. So Grayson College is at Grayson College on all your major platforms. Grayson.edu is our website. My email is Harris, Harris, the letter M, at Grayson.edu. I'm on Facebook because I'm old and that's where I am, at Molly Clark Harris. I kept the maiden name in there so friends pre-marriage can find me. And then if you want like the fun side of me, I try not to do a whole lot of cross-content posting, but on Instagram, I'm the Doc with Crocs, and it's Doc W Crocs, Crocs. We created that persona when I was the Dean of Student Affairs at the college, because I needed to be relatable and I needed students to trust me and to be able to come to me with their concerns. And so there's a little avatar and the whole shebang. But the Doc with Crocs on Instagram is usually just fun things happening around the college.
Well, Dr. Molly Harris, Vice President of Community Engagement at Grayson College, my good friend. Like I said, you're like a sister, you and your family. I greatly appreciate everything you have done and continue to do to power the good. You are a change maker. Thank you for coming on the ChangeMakers Podcast.
Thanks for having me. This has been so much fun.
Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services is proud to power the ChangeMakers Podcast. We're a people-first company that protects what matters most, the families, businesses, and trailblazers that keep our community going. As one of the nation's top independent insurance firms, Higginbotham is a single-source solution for business insurance, employee benefits, HR services, and personal insurance that's customized for you. We're here to serve you, the people you care about, and your community. Call 866-377-1959 or visit higginbotham.com.
Thank you for listening to the ChangeMakers Podcast, produced by City Current and powered by Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services.
To learn more, to listen to past episodes, and to share your stories of other changemakers who are making a difference, visit citycurrent.com or call 901-321-1020.
Follow the conversation online using the handle @CityCurrent or the hashtag #PowerTheGood.